Hello, everybody. Welcome into Bills Weekly here on FingerLakes1.com. I am Paul Russo, joined as always by Kyle Evans and Jim Sinicropi. We are here in our first Victory Monday in a while, guys. Feels pretty good. I'd say so.
Good Victory Monday, I would say. Both sides of the ball looked good. Usually we're talking about one side of the ball. So, yeah, it was just a lot of fun to watch. Good to see everything clicking. And, the Jets aren't a very good team, I would say, especially with Zach Wilson as their quarterback. But I think it was still a really good win.
Yeah, so we'll obviously recap the win on the Jets, preview Week 12 big showdown in Philadelphia against the Eagles, and of course touch on a couple of different headlines within the game last night because, well, we have to. Can't go fully 1 week without a couple of different things popping up. So we'll touch on all that. But first, thank Generations Bank, the sponsor of the podcast today. Generations Bank has been serving the financial needs of the Finger Lakes region since 1870. Generations combines the best of modern banking with dedication to our local communities. Whether you're looking for a checking account, CDs, a home improvement loan, you name it, we have what you need. We are committed to serving and giving back to our communities. Visit us online at mygenbank.com. Generations Bank, member FDIC, and equal housing lender. So, 32-6. Hell yeah, that's nice to kind of say a little bit.
First win in November.
Yeah.
For the Bills. And, it's got them, doesn't get them back on track, but it's a sigh of relief. And now they can play the Eagles before the bye week, knowing that if they beat the Eagles, they might be back on the inside looking out as far as the playoffs go.
Yeah, I mean, this we've talked, I think, about the past at least two games kind of being ones that the Bills had to have, and they weren't able to capitalize on Denver, but able to capitalize and then some, I'd say, on the Jets.
Yeah, and Denver's a better team than the Jets, obviously. They're now coming off of, 4 straight wins, with wins over the Bills and the Chiefs. Not saying that the Bills shouldn't have won that game at home on Monday Night Football, but, Denver's turned out to be a little bit better of a team than we thought. But a must win this week. Their season was over if they didn't win, and they won. So Bills fans should feel good about that. They won in convincing fashion. The 32 points that the Bills scored were the most the Jets have allowed since 2021.
Wow, that was the exact stat I was going to say.
Yeah, I was impressed
crazy.
by that stat because we've seen the Jets lose games, but defensively always be strong against the better offenses. So that's a great sign for the Bills' offense, a great sign for Joe Brady, who took over for Ken Dorsey. And then you also got to wonder, okay, teams do so much homework in the NFL. So Joe Brady coming in, the Jets didn't really have anything to plan for, looking at game film. So next week the Eagles will get to see what a Joe Brady-led offense looks like and maybe make adjustments that the Jets weren't able to.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. There is, albeit small in the grand scheme, a notebook on Joe Brady already, but not to this level. This is probably the best, talent pool he's had. Not a knock on those pretty much year and a half they had at Carolina before, but, Josh Allen, Sam Darnold.
Yeah, right.
So, either way. But let's kind of start there. Josh Allen, I thought, looked really good. To me, and I think, Kyle, we talked a little bit off air, me and you about it, didn't seem like he was forcing the issue too much in the grand scheme of it. All in all, I'd say it was probably his best game that he's probably collectively had, passing-wise, in a number of weeks.
Yeah, he looked a lot more confident to me. Actually, the whole offense looked a lot more confident. He didn't really force a lot, as you said. There was that one ball to the corner of the end zone that Quentin Morris didn't haul in. Initially, it looked like he was forcing it, and then after the play, it looked like he just fit it into a really good window. So he had a lot of good throws yesterday. The one to Khalil Shakir fit that one in perfectly. He just looked a lot more confident, a lot more energy, a lot more flow and rhythm. Just looked like a better offense and not as predictable. More creativity. We saw a lot of motion with the running backs especially too. So I loved what I saw from Joe Brady in the first week against a really good defense.
And Allen looked like he was having fun, which is something we haven't seen recently. Stephon Diggs was held to 4 catches for 27 yards. That touchdown pass to Shakir was the longest in the NFL to all season, I think,
Yep.
to a wide receiver.
Yep.
81 yards. So no turnovers. Technically, there was one. It was a Hail Mary.
Yeah.
But really, no turnovers for the Bills, other than that Hail Mary at the end of the first half that was intercepted. And it was good, like I say, to see them look like the Bills of old. Looks like Josh Allen was having fun. But I have concerns about, like we talked in previous shows, how like they were force-feeding Stephon Diggs, making sure he got his targets. And now Dorsey's gone, and they only target him 4 times, which is fine. But maybe like Dorsey was, that was part of their game plan. Look, it's like a pitch count for Stephon Diggs. We got to get him this many targets, or play calling, taking that into effect, like maybe wanting to call another play, but thinking, geez, we haven't thrown the ball to Diggs in a couple of possessions. And so I don't think that in a perfect world you want to run your offense that way. You want to just, some days Diggs will play a bigger role in the game plan, some he won't. But when you see that tweet that Trayvon Diggs, Stephon's brother, sent out last week, you know that Diggs is talking to him behind the scenes. And I'm worried that this is going to be a little bit of an issue going forward if, for instance, they lose to the Eagles next week and Stephon Diggs has 4 targets again.
Well, it's interesting because we did touch on it last week a little bit, but I did find it interesting that, at least in the immediate aftermath right now, we're looking at this from about 16, 18 or so hours after final play. We haven't seen anything from Trayvon or Stephon, on
Right,
social.
because they won.
That's what I'm kind of wondering here too. Or
It's not that Diggs is. I'm sure Stephon Diggs is happy that they won, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the reason you aren't hearing anything of it because you can't come out in a blowout win, and say I need the ball more.
Mm-hmm.
But you watch what happens next week if they lose. I wouldn't, unless Diggs has a big game, or a lot of targets. I just situationally, but I bet that Stephon Diggs, when he put his head on the pillow Sunday night, was a little upset he didn't get the ball more. And I think that's a problem because if a football team in a perfect world is everybody's got to be unselfish and play their role. But I just get this feeling that, that Stephon Diggs could derail things as we move forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I guess maybe we'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone here in a way because you had a couple different skirmishes break out in that game yesterday.
Yeah,
And
including one in the tunnel.
Yeah, one in the tunnel that kind of started from one on the field. And I don't know if last week he would have done it, but I mean, Diggs was kind of like a main, I wouldn't call him instigator, but he was coming to the defense of his own guys, at least in the one on the field. So I don't know. It's one of those weird, it's Diggs, so I definitely am 100% backing what you said, Jim, but it also makes me wonder if the fact that there's just maybe a guy in Dorsey that maybe despite, like you said, maybe a pitch count type thing, who maybe they just didn't see eye to eye for whatever reason on something, and
Yeah,
4 for 27 just makes him a hell of a lot happier, at least in the interim, than 4 for 100.
I hope that isn't the case, but all evidence going back to the off season, to some stuff that's happened this season, and then his brother tweeting that thing about how he's got to get out of Buffalo. There's definitely something to it, but I hope not, and I hope that as long as the team wins, Diggs is on board with that and working towards a Super Bowl and less concerned with his targets and stat line. So time will tell, but when it will rear its head is if the Bills happen to lose the next game the Bills lose.
Yeah.
And remember, he actually only had 3 catches against Denver. So in 2 games, he has 7 catches for 61 yards. So I'm sure that's also why that tweet was sent out after the Denver game, because he had 3 catches. So he had 1 more than he had last week. So, yeah, Dorsey was there last week, but it's weird that all of a sudden now he's only had 7 catches in 2 games. Remember, the 1 game he had 10 in that same game.
Every game it seemed like he was up there above 7-8.
And you look yesterday, Diggs only had 4 catches, and Gabe Davis had 0, and they still put up 32.
Yeah, which is great if you're the Bills.
Yep.
But Yeah, and you don't hear Gabe Davis really complaining, but it is a little concerning the past couple of weeks for Gabe Davis.
Yeah, through all this, and I was going to get to this here in a second too, but just like the guys offensively, I have stat lines for just on my sheet, right? Cook, Shakir, Ty Johnson, Dalton Kincaid, Stephon Diggs. It was about, I don't know if there's ever a term as being overly balanced, but it was about as overly balanced a game, I think, stat sheet wise, that I've seen in football just in general this year, let alone NFL, college, whatever, just in
Except
general.
for the starting wideouts. Like
Right.
it was, they balanced it everywhere around, but the starting wideouts
Right.
didn't, had 4 receptions for 27 yards combined.
I mean, like James Cook, who, look, was in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons last week, has a really good game this past week, 73 yards on the ground, but 29 through the air, and that's how he got into the end zone, was through the air as well. So
Kincaid?
yeah.
had
James
5
Cook,
receptions.
sorry to interrupt, he's actually third in rushing yards in the entire NFL. I don't think we would have ever thought that through, 11 weeks?
Yeah, that's kind of hard to believe.
He's only behind Raheem Mostert and obviously the crazy Christian McCaffrey, who's going
Right.
to win the title every year. But
Yeah.
yeah, I thought that was a pretty telling stat.
Yeah, I mean, if that was the case, James Cook would have been going in the first round of fantasy football drafts, and he wasn't. Just goes to show that sometimes the preseason rankings or whatever don't mean much. But saw something pretty interesting in terms of Dalton Kincaid, who's been really becoming a bigger and bigger part of the offense. So we had 5 or more receptions now in 5 straight games. Now, there's only 3 other Buffalo Bills to do that since 1970. Which is kind of crazy.
Yep.
But let's see
feel like
if
this
you
is in
guys can
Miami.
name them.
Can I go for the first one?
Yeah.
Andre Reed.
Yep. That's Andre Reed's one of them.
Happy for that one. Kyle, do you want to take a stab or?
I don't think I got this.
Okay. Can I? Steve Tasker.
No.
No.
No. If Tasker never was.
Is it just one more?
No, there's 2 more.
Oh,
One's
2 more.
Stephon Diggs,
Okay.
and then the other one's
Diggs.
Eric Molds.
Eric Molds. Now that's a name. Oh man, now that takes me back to some like Madden 04 days right there.
Think about it. Andre Reed, the best receiver in the history of the franchise. Stephon Diggs, the best receiver, in the last few years for the Bills. Eric Molds, who was the top receiver of that era of Buffalo. And then Dalton Kincaid, a tight end.
Right.
The Bills have never had that tight end, but it looks like Kincaid's really settling in, and we really were maligning the coaching staff for not utilizing their top draft pick more earlier in the season. But since Knox's injury, Kincaid's he's starting to become that caliber of reliable tight end along the lines of Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce, and that is just an element that the Bills.
Not Mark Andrews anymore.
Well, right, yeah, but yeah, that's a good sign for Kincaid, and I didn't realize he was having success at a rate that would put him on a list of
Yeah.
3 other guys since 1970.
How about that? All right. So before we flip over here to the defense here, quickly through one game under Joe Brady, and I don't know if I'd call it a new offense per se, but grade for week 1 through the Joe Brady era for you guys. They were willing to give out.
Well,
I'd call it a solid B plus, in my mind.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with you there. I thought, like I said, I thought it was really good. I love that they just did different stuff, more creativity, using their running backs in different situations. I liked what he did. Again, it's only one game, though. We'll see how it does against Philly.
I give it an A plus. I mean, what more could you ask for? 32 points against a team that hasn't allowed that much in 2 years. The most points that this Bills offense has scored since October 1st when they ran it up on Miami. So I don't think it could have gone much better, except unless you want to consider keeping Stephon Diggs happier is part of that grade, because if that was, then I'd probably knock it down to an A minus.
Yeah, scored on 6 of their first 8 drives, too. Obviously, the first 3 weren't touchdowns, but points, that's all you need.
Yeah, and before we get to the defensive effort, got to mention the special teams. The
Oh, yeah.
opening kickoff kind of set the tone. The Bills punter hasn't been that great this year. He had a kick that had him down inside the 10, and Tyler Bass, despite a missed extra point, made a couple of long ones.
Yeah, 50-yard was it the fourth quarter?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think the special teams played a big role too, and just an all-around good week for the Bills.
Yeah, definitely agree there. I know that's something that, looking at the paper, we haven't talked about Tyler Bass in a while, to be completely honest. I mean, just one of those things where, you get lost in the shuffle maybe a little bit, but, we talked about him pretty consistently there for the first 3-4 weeks, and since then it's kind of not tailed off, not by his own doing, right? But the opportunities have been maybe few and far between in that sense where it's worth talking about. So defensively, in a classic case of stop us if you heard us talk about this before, I thought did really well, but I think a lot of good play is going to get overshadowed again by the depth issue on defense, and specifically this time at secondary. Rasul Douglas, I watched start with him, new Bill, 4 tackles, but 2 interceptions.
Recovery too.
Seems to be a little bit of a fan favorite already when he jumped into the stands. Channeling, I'm not going to say it because I hate talking about it in that way, but maybe we can come up with something involving Orchard Park or Buffalo and a synonym for jump. But, he looked really good out there and really stepped up, I thought, in the second half because 3 of the guys in the secondary, mixed between cornerbacks and safeties, end up going out for the game. Taylor Rapp and Taron Johnson collide on a play, both exit with different head injuries. Johnson with a concussion, Taylor Rapp with a neck injury. And Kyle, you said last I heard he was at home and resting, but test came back clear and everything.
According to Ian Rappaport of NFL Network, he's good to go, so I would expect him to be ready to play Sunday.
And then Dane Jackson also had a head injury that he exited the game with, so it ended up being kind of a collection of different guys back there, anchored by Rasul Douglas, who just veteran leadership kind of back there, I'd say, and really anchored down. And look, Jets offense was kind of just spinning tires all night for the most part, but it's the NFL. You can't let teams get away with anything, and the Bills defense just held strong all game and really was
Brees Hall.
Place. Yeah,
They stopped the rushing game, and so once you do that, now
forcing Zach Wilson to throw down the field.
Yeah, forget about
That's
it.
a disaster if you're a Jets fan.
So kudos to the Bills for shutting down the running game, and I think that led to everything else. But that was the first Buffalo Bills interceptions since week 4.
crazy.
Yeah, they weren't getting takeaways like they were in the first, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, or whatever it was.
So they didn't give any away. They took it away. I mean, this was just an all-around great bounce-back week for the Bills.
Yeah, so Douglas kind of anchored, like I said, that. But up front, Terrell Bernard kind of enters back into the fray a little bit. 6 tackles, half sack. Terrell Dodson had 7 tackles and a sack.
This game is a Bill. Tyrell Dodson played really well.
Know that. Leonard Floyd, though, 4 tackles and 2.5 sacks, and that's a name
Another new acquisition
that we really haven't talked about in a few weeks either, in that sense. So, really, really great stuff. I thought, like I said, from the Bills' defense, whether from shutting down the run in that sense, right, forcing stuff downfield and everything. Just another steady, good effort from a defense that I think nationally probably isn't getting the amount of love it maybe deserves, to be completely honest, even though they're banged up and everything. And I know statistically they kind of sit middle of the road, but, when you look ahead to the Eagles game coming up here, which, we'll talk about in a few minutes or a few moments, they sit middle of the road defensively, but everybody likes talking about their defense as well as their offense. So
Yeah, and they're,
I think nationally they deserve the love.
They're basically completely healthy, aren't they, too?
Yep.
And, I mean, look at no Trey White, no Milano. I mean, we could go on and on. Even some of the, like last week, Micah Hyde didn't play against Denver. Like I said,
Ed Oliver's been dealing with a toe.
Yeah, we say it every week, but again, I think the defense deserves a lot of credit for playing as well as they are with all the injuries that they've dealt with. And Leonard Floyd has the 8th most sacks in the NFL at 9.5, and the most sacks by a Bill since 2017. I think that's pretty impressive.
How about that? No,
One thing I thought was interesting, too, so the ambulance had to come out on the field again yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, the ambulance comes out on the field a lot during Bills games.
Yeah.
Week 2 last year, Dane Jackson had a head and neck injury. Ambulance comes out. Of course, DeMar Hamlin, ambulance comes out. Earlier this season, Damian Harris, ambulance. And now yesterday, another ambulance. It's just, I mean, stuff, to me, when the ambulance comes out, that's that shakes you a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know, and I'm not as well versed exactly with Orchard Park landscape as maybe I should be. Part of me wonders though if it has to do with just distance to an outside medical center.
Well, I mean,
but
the DeMar Hamlin was in Cincinnati, so I just don't.
Right.
I think that just with most cases, if they suspect something serious, they're not going to move them. They're going to get the ambulance out there.
Right.
So it's happened 4 times to the Bills in the last 2 years,
Ah,
or whatever
yeah.
that's worth.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's like you said. I'm just used to seeing ambulance comes out in border sports all the time, so I don't know. Hey, maybe it's just like one of those cursed timeline type things. I guess I don't know, but all right, let's transition here. Let's look ahead. Bills at the Eagles for Week 12, a 4:25 game in the late window on CBS. Philly 8-1 right now, but that will change tonight as they await to play on Monday night against the Chiefs tonight. So as of now, that portion of it remains in limbo, how they exactly go into the game momentum-wise. But Jalen Hurts, 68.8% passer, enters tonight, 23-47 for yards, 15 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. DeAndre Swift, their leading rusher. A.J. Brown, their leading receiver. Offensively, we know pretty much about how dynamic that offense can be every now and then, to the point that you kind of don't talk about a guy like, why am I drawing a blank? He won the Heisman. He's on my fantasy team.
For the Eagles?
Yeah.
Heisman winner for the Eagles?
Devontae Smith.
Thank you, Devontae Smith. Why did I draw a blank there? I don't know, but he gets lost in the shuffle because A.J. Brown, 1,000-yard receiver this year already. So, this has got to be the Bills' toughest test, at least on paper, going into a game this year, right?
This is
I'd
a
have to
team
imagine.
that anybody in the AFC would expect to play in the Super Bowl, and so if it isn't the Eagles and it's someone else, there's someone that's the caliber of team either way. So this is the biggest test in a long time for the Bills. They're the best team that they've played probably all year, and it's on the road, and it's the ultimate litmus test for this team because you're wondering if they're a Super Bowl contender. Well, let's find out if they can hang with a Super Bowl caliber team. But they like I say, they also need it. If they win this game, Bills Nation goes into the bye feeling like they're back and in the playoffs. If they lose this game, they're going to have a tough time getting into the playoffs. Most of the tiebreakers don't favor the Bills. They lost to the Broncos and Bengals. Those teams are both one game behind them. They're still a game behind, or half a game behind the Steelers and Texans, and the Dolphins and the Browns and the Jags are 2 games clear or 1.5 games clear. Ravens and Chiefs, those are all teams with better records than the Bills. So the Bills lose next week, they fall to 6-6, and heading into the Week 13 bye, and it's going to be a real uphill climb. But if they win, I'm telling you, it'll be the best Christmas ever.
Yeah, I think you said it well. You come out of the bye, you go to KC, and you feel like you have a legit chance, and then you win that game, and suddenly you're 8-5. I mean, man, that could turn the season around quickly. But I do think it's going to be extremely tough. All the weapons the Eagles have. Jalen Hurts can run. Like I said, the Bills' defense is banged up. Hopefully, Taron Johnson at least plays. He has a concussion. If he doesn't play, the secondary is even more thin. Yeah, I think it's going to be tough.
But one thing the Bills got going for them, 1 extra day of rest. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it does make a difference. The Bills have been spending all day today probably just resting and trying to get healthy for practice. The Eagles are still preparing for their week 11 or week 12 game.
And I don't
over late tonight.
Yeah, I'm about saying I don't buy into a lot of the stuff completely too, right? But they also have to come back one time zone.
Yeah, no, think about it. It's to me it makes a difference. It's something that's working in the Bills' advantage in this situation.
Yeah. So Philly's defense, did want to mention that, like I mentioned, they're also a middle-of-the-road defense. They're 14th in the league in the grand scheme of it. They allow 323.3 yards. 257 of those is through the air, and they have one of the better rush defenses, though, in the league, allowing only 66.3 yards of rushing per game. So what's that tell me? Up front, really good. I mean, I think everybody knows it. They have a nice little quad of D linemen that pressure really well up front. But there's opportunity to be had downfield then, clearly, is what I garner from that split stat. So is this another game where we get to see a similar stat line that Josh had yesterday, right? 275 yards, 3 touchdowns? I think it's possible for sure.
Yeah, they allow the 29th most passing yards per game. Usually quarterbacks have no trouble. I mean, look at Sam Howell when they took him to overtime.
Yes.
I can't remember, week 5, week 6. Sam Howell had well over 300 passing yards. Quarterbacks are going to get their yards, but it's about capitalizing in the red zone. Field goals won't beat this team. And I think takeaways are huge in this game, too. They need to somehow take the ball away and capitalize on that, and then the Bills will have a chance.
Be a hostile atmosphere, too.
Yeah. Make sure you don't dress as Santa. That's a bad dated joke. Anyway. Or batteries either. So, Bills currently in the early window. Now, this is probably going to shift a little bit depending upon what happens tonight. Yep. But whatever line is available, I took a bit of a mean average from the couple I saw. 3.5-point underdog the Bills are, at least in this early spot. 47.5 is the total line. Your forecast as it sits right now, 50 degrees and partly cloudy, so not bad weather conditions by any means. Probably some of the nicer ones that you'll see the rest of the way in terms of outdoor games in the northern side of the country. So I'd say the opportunity is certainly there for a really good game to be had.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for predictions, I really do think the Bills got a shot here. Just any team that plays the Eagles, you're already up against it because any situation where it's 4th or 3rd and 1 or 1.5, the Eagles are going to get it, like, because they got that play. It's unstoppable. Like, statistically, it's been unstoppable. So if you think about just being guaranteed a first down anytime you have a short yardage situation or a goal line situation, it's, man, that would be a tough team to beat. But, like Kyle said, the Bills are going to have to put up some points. I think that they'll need to score 27, 28 points to win this game. And you know what? One day short rest. This is a huge game for the Bills, probably a bigger game for the Bills than the Eagles. I'm going Buffalo to win 28-26.
Love it. All right. Kyle?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of a score. I do feel like I kind of agree with him. I think the Bills could pull out a win. I mean, this NFL season's been crazy as it is. The Eagles haven't lost at home, so they're due for a home loss. But I also think if they lose to the Chiefs tonight, that's not good for the Bills. They're going to come
make the prediction tomorrow might be different.
Yeah, so, all right, I guess hate to do it, but I want the Bills to win, but I think the Eagles are going to win. I'll say 27-20. Eagles win.
Part of me thought you were going to go Bills there so I could get into a nice Mortal Kombat fight voice, but I guess that's going to have to be you, Kyle. I'm with Jim here, to be honest. Although I'm also with you guys. I think I'd rather prefer to have the pick outright or prediction outright tomorrow. But I think, the Bills kind of ride a little bit of this momentum they got built from yesterday a little bit. The vibes kind of keep it going a little bit through week 2 of Joe Brady having full control of the offense. I think I'm going to go a little bit more high scoring than you, though, Jim. I can see this thing getting to be a little bit of a shootout. I'm going to go Bills 35, Eagles 30.
Well, that would be entertaining.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be a bit more of a shootout, but I definitely am riding with the Bills here, though.
But obviously a lot of focus on the Eagles on this game tonight. It's kind of puts the Bills in a donut situation if you're from the perspective of the Eagles. This is a rematch of the Super Bowl tonight, Monday Night Football. And who knows who gets hurt. Jalen Hurts about this time last year suffered an injury. It kept him out of about 3-4 weeks.
Pretty much a month, yeah.
Yeah, so not hoping anybody gets hurt, but it's tough to evaluate that matchup with the Eagles until we see the Eagles play Kansas City on Monday Night Football. And whether they win or lose, I don't buy that if they lose they'll come back and be mad and beat the Bills. it's just the same way that the Bills lost to the Bengals and then came back and lost to the Broncos.
Right.
So, so we'll see. But I'm excited for the game tonight between the Eagles and the Chiefs.
It really is a fun one for tonight. And, not to go full down the hill here because obviously this is Bills Weekly, not NFL Weekly, but, Thanksgiving week's always one of my fun weeks for football watching. I think all of us can agree, right? Football on Thanksgiving, you got 3 games right there. You got one on Friday this year, which is a little bit of a twist. And then obviously, not a full slate on Sunday, but, a pretty normalized slate as usual Sunday and Monday. So plenty of football. Don't know about how great every game's going to be, but certainly football to be watched all week this week.
And then next week I won't be here with you guys for the recap of that Eagles game. But maybe I'll send you my thoughts.
Yeah. I will appreciate the notes, and we have the technology. Don't be afraid to send a video message or something like that we can throw up.
Well, if there's something that I'm compelled to, I'm not sure I'll be able to watch it.
That's a good point, yeah.
It's a late game. Yeah,
4:25.
Watch it. I'm going to be in Pinehurst, North Carolina.
Pinehurst.
Thanksgiving.
Are you doing Pinehurst too, or?
Yes, actually on Sunday.
Oh.
But we'll be off the course before the Bills kick off. But it's always fun when you go on vacation like that to a place like that. Because what will probably happen is I'll be walking through the clubhouse and the Bills game will be starting. There will be some Bills fans and Eagles fans, probably watching the game. So I don't know. We'll see what it brings, but going to take a little vacation. So
nothing wrong with that.
One more note on the Bills-Eagles game.
Sure.
Can Von Miller please make an impact one game? He played 16 snaps yesterday.
We didn't talk about this. We talked about it last week, but during the broadcast yesterday, the announcers seemed to think that he just wasn't ready, like that he wasn't fully
7
recovered.
weeks in now from coming off IR, and he goes down. He's decreasing snaps.
Yeah, from last week. A year, maybe the big lead was why, but it leads me to think that he's just not 100%.
Yeah, he has 1 tackle or 2 tackles in 7 games. I mean, and he's making $20 million. Like I said, I think he's a future Hall of Famer, but man, with his contract looking the way it is, and he's not performing like they need him to, especially now with all the injuries. They need him to show up against the Eagles.
Yeah, they're going to need him next week, and then he's got the bye week, but it was about almost a full calendar year since he was hurt.
Yeah. I don't want to. I guess I'll do devil's advocate here. If you're the Bills and Von Miller, and you know that he and yourself are not 100%, I know it's a big game, but do you just more or less have him be one of the scratches going into Sunday?
No, they haven't so far. They just played him less, and I think they need him, just as a warm body.
Right.
But he sure hasn't been effective when he's been in there, as you would expect from a future Hall of Famer.
About to say, I think yesterday I only saw him really get off the edge once yesterday, if I'm recalling right, against a Jets line that, I saw a fair, and I'll bring it to here, against a Jets line that frankly has looked like they've quit, more or less. Like they aren't even helping Tim Boyle up off the ground,
Yeah, no, to be honest with you, I don't even notice when he's out there.
Yeah, so 5 different players had sacks, and Leonard Floyd had 2.5, and Von Miller had 0.
Yeah.
And didn't even have a QB hit or anything, no pass, knockdown or anything. It just sucks because he's getting paid all that money, and you need him, and he's just not there for you. So, hopefully he shows up somehow, some way, and plays a little more. We'll see.
Only one last thing I say, we talk about how the Bills have the 3rd toughest schedule coming home, and they do, but Eagles, bye, and Chiefs. So it's nice to have that bye week between those games to prepare for the Chiefs, but that's the hard part of the schedule. The rest of it is not a walk in the park, but they're teams that I think the Bills should win, and teams that historically the Bills have won. So after the Chiefs, they host the Cowboys, and I just feel like that should be a win. And then they go at the Chargers. That should be a win, right? The Patriots, after losing to them once, you got to think that's a lock for a win at home. And then at Miami on January 7th, which they rolled them up when they played them in Buffalo. And I would think that maybe by then the Bills might even be favored or even money to win that one too. So these next 2 games are the really tough part of the remaining schedule, both on the road, both against last year's defending Super Bowl participants, Eagles and Chiefs. And then after that, it's so maybe just split and then win the 4 in a row, and that might be enough.
Yeah, if they're going to split, though, they really need to beat the NFC team because losing to the Chiefs would mess the conference record up again.
Yeah.
Because they're only 3-5 in conference.
Horrible.
So if there's any tiebreakers, it would hurt the Bills. So
And there
if
will
they're going
be,
to split,
there will be
lose.
tiebreakers, I guarantee it.
Yeah, if they're going to split, lose to the Chiefs, even though I think the Chiefs game, in my opinion, is more winnable than the Eagles game. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I look at kind of, especially like the recent history. That game in Miami, the last game of the year, is the one that scares me honestly the most on the schedule because that's actually has been a spot that the Bills have struggled with recently. Is on the road in Miami.
Well, the nice thing about that is so far away from now that by the time it gets here, how we'll feel about their chances will probably be who knows. Who knows? It might be an inconsequential game.
Right.
I don't want to sit here and do a Bills podcast for a team that's mathematically eliminated from the playoffs.
Right. No, I mean I'm with you there. Right. I mean, and we may get to that point, and like you said, this may not matter. We may be talking about a game that's Mike White versus Kyle Allen at quarterback for whatever
Everybody's
reason.
resting their starters,
Right.
Or the preparing for next year.
Yeah.
We have some non-Bills news. I mean, it's AFC news, so I might as well say
Let
it.
it rip.
The Mark Andrews ankle injury is not as bad as initially thought, and he could return at some point this season.
Wow. How about that?
So,
Good for him.
just AFC news. Ravens are what?
8-3.
2 games above the Bills. Yep.
Yeah. So
Browns might win the division though, so we'll see.
the Joe Flacco led Browns. What a statement to make. All right, so I think that about does it, right, guys?
Yep.
We all good to go? All right.
Go.
So fantastic.
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Safe travels, Jim. Enjoy.
Thank you.
So thanks for listening and watching, everybody. You can find Bills Weekly here on FingerLeaks1.com, FL1 YouTube channel, and all major podcasting platforms, including but not limited to Spotify and Amazon Music. We'll be back next Monday, new time, 10 a.m. on the live side of things, so make sure you tune in then. Good luck to the Bills, and let's go Buffalo.